see ourselves really. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to our virtual write-in today. We're really excited to see you. We're excited to not have any technological difficulties like we did 2 weeks ago. And we're excited to talk about plot and the NaNoWriMo season coming up. So, I have to remember to introduce myself. My name is Mariah. I'm the director of the Young Writers Program at NaNoWriMo.
I am Freddie. I am the editorial intern.
And I am Nina. I am the programs intern.
And we are here doing a virtual write-in. If this is your first one, I can give you a little background. We like to think of a virtual write-in as a chance to hang out with a bunch of other enthusiastic writers. We do some word sprints together. The goal is to have some words done by the end of this hour, and also to just hang out and talk to other writers, which is really my favorite part. Okay, check. If you are just joining us, I saw some people already chatting in the chat. If you're not in that chat yet, feel free to maybe drop in, share where you're joining from. So we're joining from Berkeley, California, and it's like 95 degrees outside, which I know is nothing for some of you, but for us in Berkeley, we're basically melting. So if we melt halfway through, that's why. Please send help. I wanted to make sure to call out this virtual writing. We're going to try to focus on plot a little bit, answer some plot questions, talk about how we plot. If you want more resources around plotting, we have a bunch of NaNo Prep resources that we're calling NaNo Prep 101, where we asked a bunch of people who won the first time what went different for you, and then we pulled all their answers and tried to come up with some resources to help you guys win. And that's at the NaNoWriMo site, and we'll drop the link in the chat and in the comments. If you haven't signed up for NaNoWriMo yet, we've got a new site. It just launched last week. You can sign in using all your existing info from the old site, so definitely do that before November. It's a beautiful new site. We're still working out some bugs like anything. It's like, but it's only going to get better, so I'm pretty excited. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Take a breath. We have to remember to breathe. And like we said, this virtual write-in is going to mostly be about plotting your novel. That said, it's like September. Have you started plotting your novel yet?
Yeah, actually.
What? Okay. Have you started plotting your novel yet?
Kind of.
Oh, so we're a little ahead of schedule. So maybe you're like we really hired some ambitious interns this season. But maybe you've already started plotting your novel. Maybe you haven't. Maybe you're like me, where you're still just kind of having an idea and exploring the characters. That's fine. We're trying to come up with some sprints and some prompts that will work for everybody. Definitely feel free to use any of the prompts we give you or ignore them, and just as long as you spend this time writing and talking to writers, then it's a success. Let's see. I wanted to see if anybody's chatting in about where they're from. Someone's from Turkey.
Ooh.
Hello. Someone's joining from Maine. We've got Gemma, who's joining from New York. The Writers End in Atlanta, Georgia. Oh my gosh, Wyoming, Portugal. Slovakia. Yeah. Hello, Slovakia. Let's see. Central California. Theo, I bet it's hot where you are too. Hope you're staying cool today. Someone says they were frozen today. I don't know where they're from. Tell us where you're from. Maybe we'll go there and get a little cool. And let's see. Last one. Las Vegas. So we've got Dylan from Las Vegas. So all over the world. I love seeing that. We've got a huge NaNoWriMo community. Okay. So maybe let's jump right into our first sprint, if that sounds good to you guys. And for our first sprint, we just wanted to kind of warm up our brain a little, because I don't know if you've been writing lately, but some of us haven't, so we want to warm up a little. So here's our very first prompt. So I'll give the prompt, and I'll set a timer. Did someone bring their phone?
I did.
Nina will set her timer for 5 minutes. And in these 5 minutes, we're going to write together, and you're either going to be writing about the prompt that I give, or you can write anything. Like you're like, maybe you don't even have an idea yet, so you spend 5 minutes trying to come up with an idea. That's fine. But the prompt that we have for you, if you want to use it, is write a list of everything in your character's room. Go as small as you want. So if you want to go down to like the bobby pins hidden in their sock drawer, or speaking of hidden, if you want to start big, like describe their dresser or their bed, and then start doing things that they have hidden in their dresser or under their bed, that's cool too. And whatever pops into your head is fine, You can write sentences, or you could just straight up list. This is just to get our brains, our writing brains warmed up. Any questions? I'll answer them in the chat. You ready with the timer? Ready, set, 5 minutes, go. We're about halfway through.
And stop.
That is time. That's cool that it goes to negative timing.
I didn't even know that.
So that was 5 minutes. Go ahead and finish your last sentence. And you can drop in the chat if you want to share how many words you wrote, or if you wanted to share maybe a couple items that you wrote in your character's room. I realized that I was asking myself a lot of questions because the novel I'm working on is historical fiction set in 1910. And so when I actually started thinking through what was in the room, I'm like, I don't know, they've got pegs on the wall. How many dresses do they have? You know, like I was realizing. So I wrote a bunch of questions, and then I started writing about ants that were crawling along that they like build little pathways for. So I took it in a weird way, but I also have some questions to answer. What did you guys want to share?
I wrote just a list of stuff. So the character I'm working on is this chaos witch. So she has a lot of but she's, I don't know, impoverished or whatever. So it's like this studio apartment, and she has like bookshelves of secondhand, new agey magic books and stuff like that.
That's cool. Did you do the prompt?
I kind of steered away from the prompt a little bit and started working on something that I had going earlier, in which the antagonist of my story is the main character, and it's a story told through their perspective.
Oh, that's cool.
So I'm kind of plotting out the different things that I want to talk about or look into as far as the story is concerned.
That's cool. Mm-hmm. Speaking of plotting, we thought we could also talk, if you wanted to drop in the chat. We know there are a million different plotting structures or methods out there. It can be hard to kind of find the one that works for you. We supplied a couple. If you go to the NaNo Prep 101 link that we're going to drop into the chat or into the description, we've got a plotting quiz to try to help you find your plotting method. But I'd love to talk here a little bit too. If you wanted to share what plotting methods have worked for you in the past, and maybe you don't even use a plotting method, and that could be your answer too. So for me, I kind of like this book called From Where You Dream, which is it's like a little dreamy, obviously, where you spend a lot of time before you start writing just dreaming through scenes and jotting them down on random things, and then putting them on note cards, and then putting them in a kind of order and feeling it out as you go. So it's I guess I decided I read a lot of plotting books, and then I was like, I don't like those, so I kind of use this method instead. So that's called From Where You Dream, if you're interested in it. It's similar to what we have a drop in pants structure that is in that NaNo Prep stuff. It's similar. Do you guys do you guys too have any plotting structures or methods that have really worked for you in the past?
Trying to think of any. When I was originally writing short stories, this was way back in middle school for me, the spiderweb plotting structure that they teach you in elementary school to kind of brainstorm ideas for papers and stuff like that they make you write. I basically converted that over into a literary aspect, and I started brainstorming ideas for plot devices. So I would start with the characters, and I would brainstorm different personalities from the ideas that I had that I wanted to include for that character, or I would take the scene and I would brainstorm different ideas of what specific details of the scene I wanted to include in my stories. Now I pretty much just play my novels because I already kind of have an idea of where I want my novels to go.
Mm-hmm.
I play them in my head like a movie essentially.
So cool.
And I write down a synopsis of all of the main points of those images that I see, and then I go off from there and put in specific details where I need to.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And we've got some cool things coming up in the chat. So somebody uses the build the tree method. That's Penumbra mine, which I've never heard of, and that sounds pretty interesting. I'd love to look that up. Somebody mentioned the NaNo Prep 101 resources. We have something called the 9-dot plot structure, which is a little bit like the hero's journey, but I like it a little more, so you could check that out. Keon says they like the ABDCE structure, which I also don't know what that is, and I'm just making notes to myself oh, Google this later. Someone, I lost their name, and they said I don't plan, I just go on the journey with my characters. I'm sorry I didn't call your name out. There you go. Course for you. I never plan ahead, I go on the journey with my characters. We call those people pantsers. Yeah. Because they write by the seats of their pants. and that sometimes works for people too. There's another one that I just saw. There was another structure that I thought, oh, I want to know about this. Well, I lost it. Sorry. If I see it again, maybe I'll call it out. Do you see any? People are sharing some really great lists of what their character has in their room, and I'd love to share some of those. Oh, here we go. Oh my gosh. Lindsay, highlights from Lady Mary's room. Hidden sticky buns. Trade agreements with doodles all on the margins. Threatening letters addressed to her. Letters from a witch. A half-written letter to a witch. That's like a story in itself.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Please write that. I'm so excited.
In terms of like constructing a plot out of the list, I think that's a really good one.
Yeah. Ross says my character rents a studio and isn't supposed to have open flames, so he hides candles all over the place and cupboards behind the toilet and in a potted plant. I love this prompt because, like, you think, oh, a list, what's that going to do? But now I'm like, I feel like I know so much about that character. And here's one more book thing. Kiara says, I plan everything. I like the snowflake method a ton. I used to use it as a reference, but now I follow it rather closely, and it's been great. That one I know. I think that one's pretty interesting, too. So, and somebody said, what's the book that I said? The book that I like is From Where You Dream by Robert Olin Butler. So I just typed that into the live chat. These are just a bunch of ideas. Honestly, it seems like what I'm hearing in the chat is like you find the one that works for you, and then or your story, and kind of go with that. Did you have anything to add about plot structure or ways you plot?
Yeah, I guess like going for the idea that there is a universal plot structure in terms of like, oh, the hero's journey will encompass every story or whatever, I think is a mistake. And I think it's good that people have different methods and their own methods that they find that works. I think like plot structures are there to kind of get you thinking about how things fit together rather than there's like a path that you must follow.
Totally. And like different novels have different structures, you know, so thinking about what works for one novel might not work for your novel. One thing that I think is a little time consuming but interesting is if you have a book that you love that you think you would also love to write, you can kind of try to figure out the twists and turns that novel takes, and then use that to kind of plan your novel too. If you've never plotted anything, I kind of would encourage you to try. I know that some people are hardcore pantsers, and well, much love to the pantsers. And also, if you don't know what to do, like if you haven't ever really written, I would encourage you to check out some kind of plot structure and have some kind of outline before you start writing in November. Because I feel like I've heard from, not all pantsers, but I've heard from people who say, I started writing a novel, I got to 20,000 words, and then I like didn't know where to go. And I think in some ways having a novel can help with that, as long as you don't force yourself to stick to it the whole way. And we can talk about that next, maybe how much we stick to a plot and how much we change. Okay, so we're at 20 minutes. I think we could start our second prompt. So this one is 10 minutes long, and we are going to, if this works for you, pick one of those items in the room and give it a backstory. So how did your character get it? How might it play into your story? So I'm thinking about that half-written letter to the witch in Lady Mary's room. If you want to write about the scene where she started writing it or how it came about. I'm thinking of the candles. You could write a scene about what happens to those candles if they get caught with them in the room. If this works for you, use it. If you'd rather just keep writing a list, do that. If you'd rather write something totally different, do that too. Okay, we'll do 10 minutes. How are you guys melting yet?
Yeah.
I know, me too.
It's very warm.
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to check that it wasn't just me. Like,
No.
Okay.
You're not alone.
Just sweat pouring out your faces. Okay. Ready, set, and write. Got 3 minutes left. Few minutes our time left. So you got about 30 seconds. Just keep writing as much as you can in 30 seconds. Okay, that was time. So drop into the chat maybe how many words you wrote in those 10 minutes, or a little excerpt from what you wrote. I feel like I'm going a little wild because I'm hot. Or, yeah, those two things. And maybe we can keep talking a little bit also about some plotting methods, because I think that is helping people too. Okay, so drop into the chat. Oh my god, my brain is fizzling. Someone mentioned that when they don't have a plan, their novel fizzles halfway, and I feel the same way, and also my brain is fizzling halfway through this virtual writing. So you can drop in your word count, you can drop in a section that you just wrote, or why don't you drop in the chat if novel, how much do you stick to the plot and the plan that you came up with before, and how much do you allow yourself to change things around as you go? How does that work for you? So, how does that work for you guys?
Freddie, you go. I need time to think.
Okay. I guess I try to stick pretty close to beginning and ending when I'm doing a first draft, and then I let the middle get a little bit shaggy, and then like most of the story structuring stuff I do in rewrites is take that middle and just kind of get rid of all the stuff that doesn't matter for it.
Cool. So you kind of like, you have a beginning, you have an ending set, and then you like figure out so you're like half planner, half pantser, and then editing you change things around. I think that sounds really interesting.
But it does lead to me not reaching the end a lot, because I get, I run into that problem where I fizzle out.
Yeah. For me, I did this from Where You Dream thing. I had this big stack of index cards in order of general scenes that I thought I might want to write. Then I got like 1/3 into my novel, which is what always happens. I get 1/3 into my novel, and then I get stuck. And the reason I get stuck is because things are wrong. Mm-hmm. So what I did in that point, instead, because I made a promise to myself that I will not go back and rewrite anything in this novel. So even if a character changed genders in the middle of my novel, because I was like, I think he should be a woman actually, but I didn't go back and rewrite anything. I just kept writing from that point on with my new understanding. Mm-hmm. So, but what I did do is I paused after 1/3 of my novel, and I looked at my index cards, and I started kind of rearranging and getting rid of some and adding new ones in now that I knew. Mm-hmm. So like I changed things around, but I didn't kind of rewrite anything yet. Yeah. I'm just going to keep going. Because I've definitely been burned before where I go back to the beginning and rewrite, and then by the end of my novel, I'm like, oh, I don't want that beginning anyway.
That's supposedly how Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, is he would write until he got stuck, and he'd just go back to the beginning and rewrite, and he'd get past that first point, he'd get stuck, and he'd go back and rewrite the whole thing again.
I did that, but it took freaking forever.
Yeah.
Like, it's too long for me. Nina, did you have one?
So, something that I'm doing like right now, and that I've started doing a lot more recently with my books, is essentially doing my own like Cornell notes.
Yeah.
And so it helps me think of like main ideas that I want to go through with in my novels, and then expand upon them. So like each bullet point represents something. The furthest to the left bullets are the main ideas. And then each bullet inside of those, or each bullet that follows more indented, is basically just an in-depth conversation about those ideas. So like for the story that I'm planning out, I did one bullet point that was character structures. And so that's like the main thing that I'm working on right now. And so one of the character structures, which would be further indented, was that it could be told in sequence of diabolical plans that the antagonist had. And then even further into that, I went as far as to say, like, the antagonist could be explaining their plans from beginning to end, and how they executed that plan. So I do that a lot with my novels now, just because I think that for me it helps me see the progression of the novel in detail and make sure that I'm not like repeating myself, make sure that I'm not getting stuck, that I have a plan to go with, and then making sure that everything's connected somehow. Mm-hmm. So that way the story actually flows.
Cool. I wanted to share a couple things that people wrote. So Lindsay, that letter to the witch, she said, "To the witch, we are entering a new age, one where dragons can be befriended, princesses can go on quests, and stepsisters can save each other." I love that. Ash wrote about the lava lamp in their MC's room and how all the lights are off at night, and then the lava lamp glows a peaceful purple that helps their character calm down and feel blissfully happy. So that was a cool way to work that in. Let's see, I'm looking for another thing from it. I'm trying to call it a new name. Let's see. Alicia says, I'm flexible for the middle, but the start and end don't change much, which is similar to what Freddie said, yeah.
I like that.
So NurArt says, oh, following the plan. I pantsed last time I did Nano, and I fizzled out at like 32K. It was a whole lot of fluff and unnecessary interactions. That's why I realized I tried to write a sci-fi novel 2 nanos ago, and I fizzled out after 5,000 words because I'd done no planning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this actually requires some planning. Because like every time I tried to do anything, I came up against like, what is this house like? How do they travel? What are they eating? So like I realized I actually do need to plan a little bit more. So now I do that. Lindsay Werner says, as long as I keep the beats, goals, whatever, I have a pretty coherent story. So probably you plan out, like, I don't know, 10 beats and follow them along. Let's see. Zara Wright says, they always create a master scene list for their novels. This is a list of 30 main parts in the story. Even if I just write the scenes, I find it easier to link them up at the end to finish the story. That's interesting. That's like, you don't have to worry about transitions in the moment. You just write those 30 scenes, and then when you're revising, you can worry about how things are connected or move around.
That is interesting.
I'll try that. Nature Artist 8012 says, what I do is make a trellis of sorts before writing. My writing itself is the roses that climbs the trellis. The trellis helps and supports my writing, but I usually don't stick to it completely. That's a really beautiful metaphor.
It is, yeah.
Like a really beautiful metaphor.
Usually writing metaphors are like messy and sticky, but I like.
If we keep talking, let's just
I
like.
don't know.
I think maybe we've got 20 minutes left. I think if it's recording, we can finish. Like as long as it's not fully stopped, we can keep going, and then we'll see.
It's starting to kind of come back.
Cool. Let's do it. Okay. Oh, I got it back. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Just cool. Like, unfreeze. And now we're back. So for our last sprint, we're gonna do something totally different because we felt like it. So we thought rather than thinking about like the room or what's in it, we could do this. Put your character in a moment where they have to act heroic. A big decision, a moment of danger. If you're not sure what to do, maybe write an argument between your character and an important person in your novel. And if you're not even sure who that might be yet, you could just make somebody up. You could write about an argument that you had recently, or you could just keep on working what we were working on before, which is telling the backstory of one of those prompts. Oh my gosh, that's adorable. She's like, one day in space. I don't know why she doesn't talk like that. She's Sporty Spice. Like she talks. She's a singer. She's a singer and astronaut and novelist. She's a triple threat.
I'm an astronaut.
That's how she sounds.
That's exactly how
That's
she sounds.
canon.
Canon. Okay, so we're gonna do 10 minutes for this sprint.
Okay.
And we're gonna try not to freeze. We'll do our best to like stay loose and warm.
Or maybe we should stay as like still as possible so the stream doesn't freak out.
And that's all I think. Yeah.
Okay.
And if you don't like the prompt, don't do it. Write something else.
And I think I'm gonna try and find. I think I found a more calming.
It was very
Timer.
startling when it went off.
Yeah. How much time do we have?
2 minutes.
Right, we've got 2.5 minutes left.
Oh. Calmer, right?
That's lovely.
Some waking up.
So go ahead and finish what you are writing. That was about 10 minutes. And thank you for sticking with us, even though we froze a little bit. I really liked the joke that someone made. I responded to them about how it can't be that hot in California if everything's freezing, which I thought was a very funny joke. Okay, so drop into the chat maybe your final word count, like how many words you wrote throughout this whole virtual write-in, or you could drop in something that you just wrote. Or, let's see, we had one more thing about plot. Oh, you mentioned like the middle, like the muddy middle of your plot, or like the murky middle, and people call it that sometimes. Like you know how to write the beginning, you know how to write the end, but then in the middle you're just kind of like, what do I do now? How do I keep the momentum moving? So if you guys had any advice for writers about what to do to make the middle of their story, like how to get through that muddy middle. And one piece of advice is to just kind of write everything you think of and worry about it after November. You can go back and rewrite and be more focused then. And one piece of advice that Tim, actually, he's the program director here, he put it on Instagram and I saw it and I was like, oh, that's good advice. And he heard it from someone, but I forget who, so sorry I can't cite it. But you take, you write down all the characters in your novel and you draw lines between all of them. And then on the lines, you figure out what their relationship is. Mm-hmm. So it's like this main character is best friends with this person, is this next door neighbor. Like you just figure out everyone how they're connected, and then you kind of dive into the details. So maybe this next door neighbor and this villain used to be romantically entangled, and then you have like all these little subplots because you have all these connections between characters and between your main characters, and you can kind of use some of those subplots to keep the story moving forward. The other piece of advice I heard is to take a important task or setting or very specific detail from your story. So like if I'm writing about the circus and I can take one small task that would come from working at the circus, like maybe a snake is loose, and then make a chapter about my character helping the snake keeper like find the snake. So just kind of small jobs or settings or tasks that are really specific to your story, because people really love learning new things too. So like if you're writing about a space corgi and the whole story is about her fighting like, you know, space dinosaurs, then that's like your whole novel, but maybe one chapter is about her like looking for a specific part to fix her spaceship. So those like small things that are just specific to your world or story can help in the middle.
Space kibble to fuel her.
Space kibble, oh my god. So are we all writing space corgi fan fiction? Is that what we're gonna do?
I think that's the goal here.
Cool. So Rayanne wrote 309 words, the most I've done all week.
Excellent.
Nice.
Penumbra wrote 984. Woo, woo. I didn't write that many. Anne Reynolds had her 8-year-old main character stand up to her terrifying grandmother. That sounds like a very very compelling scene. Feel free to call any ones out that you see too that are interesting to you. Oh, like Julia Sager, 265 words, writing a battle with some pirates. Very cool. Very, very cool. Redstone Rocket, 568 words. Woot. Whoa, I'm Batman wrote 1989. That's a good year.
Isn't that the year that Tim Burton's Batman came out?
Oh, what? Is it?
I don't know.
That'd be amazing if you knew that fact. Pink Cow said, "Did you just insult yourself?" V swallowed, and Kayla grinned through her sweat and tears while her nemesis turned purple. Womp womp. Love that. Let's see if anybody else shared a thing. Oh my gosh, Priscilla says, "I just got here." So Celia's opening her grandmother's tome to use the argument between a vampire and a cursed cat by trapping them in her apartment. Sounds like a lot's happening. That's very cool. Oh, and I love this too. Pink Cow says, "I don't know how many words I wrote, but I'm learning more about my main character." I mean, honestly, that is the goal of these virtual write-ins too. Like, maybe you wrote 10 words, but now you know a lot more about your main character, so when you start writing your novel, the words will just flow from your fingers. I'm in the middle of my novel, and even though that... Did we talk about last time that we don't really have a sign-off for this?
I think we did.
We should say, we could all come up with different sign-offs. Oh my gosh, we should come up with a sign-off for Blobby or for
the whole song.
For Space Corgi, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
For Sporgy.
Sporgy.
A song is beyond me, but if you want to sing, I will sit here and cheer for you.
I'll see what I can come up with.
I love that idea. Okay, thank you so much. Thanks for sticking with us during the tech problems, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks for another virtual write-in. Bye! Whew. And now I have to turn you off. End stream. Oh my gosh, what if I just... Yes, I want to end my stream. Thank you.